Best in podcast, the best in town. You wanna get up, get ready to get down. With its big wide sky and the wild river Thames, if you wanna go, we can take you there to Great Falls, Montana.
Welcome to the greatest damn town in Montana, Great Falls. I'm Rebecca Ingham.
I'm Shannon Newth.
And we're no damn experts. I know you tried to trick me on this one today, but it didn't take me long to figure out at all what was happening.
I didn't even
You
in
didn't
your
even
calendar put a
nothing.
guest name. I just put podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's my birthday gift to you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's her birthday today, everyone.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. But that's not the important stuff. Although we could devote an
We
entire
could do a whole
episode to it.
episode on that.
But we're not. Because there's something better
Yes.
in store for our listeners.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have Hasan Davis and Carol Bronson in studio with us today. And there's events happening that will have already happened in Great Falls when you listen to this, which we can talk about. But the broader picture is Hasan and your role in bringing to life a person that doesn't get talked about a ton, but has a huge impact on things, historical things in our area. So Hasan is a York reenactor from the Lewis and Clark expedition.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
So excited to be here. Thank you.
This is not your first trip to Great Falls, correct?
Nope, not my first rodeo.
You're
Good
a
choice of
repeater.
words, yes.
So let's talk just a little bit about you. Let's bring you into the fold of our visitors' listening pleasure. Tell us about who you are, where you're from, how you got into this role, how much you love Great Falls.
So how much time do you have for all
I mean,
of that?
Yeah.
I'll tell you when I
A
run out of
good
battery on the
5
computer.
minutes.
Yeah.
All right. So I live in Kentucky. I live in Paint Lick, Kentucky, big city. No, not at all.
I was like, never heard of it.
Let's compare.
Yeah.
How big?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Because
Paint
I'm from a
Lick-
town of 5.
Okay, you might have it beat. Yeah, you got it beat.
Okay.
But the downtown of Paint Lick is 3 storefronts. One of them is the post office, which is no longer open, but was open on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 2.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's the framework.
And you got that still down in your head.
Yes.
My hometown, because Montana, we had a bar,
Of course.
post office, and a mechanic shop. And the post office open Monday through Friday, and maybe Saturday, but only delivers mail Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Still to this day.
Still,
Oh.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can't be in too
So we
much of
kept-
a rush there.
We kept our post office, but we
Yeah.
lost our bar. No more bar. So Paint Lick,
Paint
Kentucky.
Lick, Kentucky. Now,
Born and raised?
No, that's where I live. I grew up in St. Louis and Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
Um,
Bigger communities.
Atlanta, there's a whole other story there. But I came to Kentucky at 18 to go
Oh.
to college, and that's where it all began. And so there's a whole lot of drama before that. I don't know how much tape you really have to get into that, but I can refer back to some of that, which has informed my work and my passion at some point.
So college, were you a history major?
No, I was I was a theater. Well, I was a communications major
Okay.
because
Same.
theater majors work at
Were-
Denny's.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah,
at least
so
until something
true.
big happens. And so I figured out it was an independent major. So I got expelled from college twice.
Oh.
Give
So-
them some background on how you got
All
there.
right. I'll go deeper. So what happened was I grew up navigating ADHD, dyslexia, and dysgraphia. So
Oh my
high
goodness.
levels of neurodiversity. Family had a lot of domestic violence early.
Oh man.
My family separated after my father attacked my mom, and my sister and I, at 6 and 7 years old, standing with butcher knives, screaming, leave my mom alone. Separation leads to divorce. Divorce citizen to a spin. It's interesting when I talk to domestic violence professionals. A lot of people talk about that separation. Just leave him. They don't think about the fact that most families this sets them on a really spiral because you don't have support,
Yeah.
you don't have financial security. And so we moved around 13 different homes over the course of the next few years. Some of those just 1 month rentals where somebody say, wake up, don't turn on lights, we got to go. You'll be in a new school tomorrow. 5 different schools. In first grade, it became clear how different I was. Couldn't sit still, couldn't stop touching, asking questions. And the teacher was frustrated at this age. I'm a December baby, so of course back in the day, you don't start school until a certain age. And so I was a year older, but I was also still couldn't write my name. And so one day my teacher decided that she had enough, and she drugged me to the back of the room and locked me in the closet and said, "This is your new room." And every day she would drag me into that box and say, "This is where you belong." And I would scream at the coach and go home and tell my mom I had a good day because I know she's just trying to make sure we're in the same place again. And, but my mom always said this. I mean, she is this amazing person. I'll tell you, just this morning, my nephew sent me a video. She received the Lifetime Achievement Award for her work as an artist and community organizer in Atlanta. She's a former Port Laureate of Atlanta. Now, so things got much better.
Yeah,
but at this
but,
moment,
rocky
this was. But one of the things that I always learned from her is that there's 2 things you can always do in a difficult situation: figure out how you got there, and figure out how you use it. What is the lesson? And so for me, in that box every day, frustrated. We were on welfare. We weren't always eating 3 meals a day. So it was all of those things going on.
Yep.
And one day the light bulb hit me after I screamed and punched a coach for an hour. And I looked up and I realized that coat room was where all the other kids keep their lunch boxes. And God, like the heavens opened up. Yes, I was like, Susie has the peanut butter jelly sandwiches without the crust. Bobby has fruit cups, and Jimmy has Tang instant breakfast drink. Remember Tang? So you have to say it like that, like an astronaut. And so for a few days, I was like, is it time to go to the coat room, teacher? And until Mama started coming complaining about their baby's coming home hungry. So all of that, she drug me back into the room because she had to keep an eye on me, but she put me in the zone. And that became my story, always trying to figure out how to stay in the zone. I got arrested at 11. The judge decided not to lock me up, which I guess is nice for a judge, but she put me on probation for the rest of my childhood. So the next 7 years, said if you do anything that a normal kid going through adolescence does, let alone one navigating poverty, neurodiversity, all this other stuff, we're going to pull the plug on you, and that's it. But my mother gave me the arts. She gave me creative writing. She gave me drama. She gave me martial arts. All these things that and she knew that I needed in order to have a way out. And it really was just that simple. I mean, we would take our food stamp dollar bills and take them to the corner store and buy a little bit of candy and get the cash back so we could get bus tokens. And people talk about welfare, welfare families are gaming the system. But my mama said once, she says, I want my babies to know what it is to sit in the theater and appreciate art.
Yep.
And so we would go downtown, and so she would sacrifice to give us those things. And so that was kind of the moving. When I turned 12, our apartment burned down and we lost everything.
Oh my goodness.
And we'd finally gotten settled, and she was working and my stepfather was working, and we finally had a 3-bedroom apartment where they finally had their own room, and the girls had a room and the boys had a room. So this was always the churn, but always with her was this sense that, one, we had everything we needed, and on our worst days, we always had each other. At Christmas, we couldn't afford a Christmas tree and gifts. She hit me with this great story. She came to us once. She said, "Do you all know what rich people do?" And it was one of those questions that you get and you're stunned because, and I was like,
how do you know?
No, Mama. We actually have no idea what rich people do. And she says, I will tell you, baby. Rich people want for nothing. I say that like that because that's exactly what she said, and it made me so curious. Rich people want for nothing. So the most important gifts that they will ever give each other are ones that they make.
Oh.
And then she would pull out all these arts and crafts things. And she said, and so we are going to make the most amazing things for each other, right? And so that was the thing that always kept us, because no matter how poor we were, we were so rich inside that house. And no matter what I had to face when I walked out the door, which was a lot, I always had this place. If I could just get home, I know it's going to be great. And it was also the place where we heard stories about people that looked like me that were different than the stories we got in the schools. You know, when I got my first history book in the 3rd grade, the teacher went on and on about how this is the place where the great heroes live. I mean, she gave the speech like it was Patton. And so I was like, let's do this. And I get all the way through the book, and I finally get to this chapter. And back in the day, you know, they have those little chapter headings with a picture at the bottom. And there's a picture of that we've all seen at some point of an old black man who's kind of stumped over, and you see his back. And it's just scarred from repeated whippings. And the caption says, "The American Negro, comma, slave, period." And that was it. This was the story that I've been waiting to learn about who I could be in the world. And and my mom says around the same time I started refusing to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning before when school started. And every day after lunch, our teacher would read from the Bible, and we would sit and she would read, and I would just start to agitate and just, you know, get put out of class because there was this churn in my head and heart. If this is all I get to be, why am I engaging in this parade? But luckily, my mother and my father started giving us these amazing stories about people, not Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass, but about people you never heard about, and telling us that our story, our presence is a part of this amazing story, right? And this story of America is amazing because we're a part of it. And so that was the thing that anchored me. And so through all of those things, what gets me here now, right, all these years later, is that those stories sustained me in a way that as I navigated all my challenges, I started alternative school in the 8th grade, expelled from alternative school in the 12th grade, got my GED, heard about this school in Kentucky that if you're poor, if they accept you, they'll pay everything. It's called Berea College. And so I was like, okay, that's kind of all I got. And so I applied to Berea College, and I did not get accepted into Berea College. I know that now because 2 of my classmates and friends did. And the week before classes started, I still hadn't received a letter. But I don't know anything about college, and so I don't know that if you haven't received a letter the week before classes start. And so I called Berea College Collect because we were poor.
Right.
And the operator answered the phone and accepted the call, which I didn't expect. And she's like, "Who do you want to talk to?" I was like, "I didn't think I'd get this far." So I guess I want to talk to the director of admissions. Go big or go home. And she says, "Please hold." I was like, "Oh, wait."
Like,
So
I'm
the
actually
next
getting
voice
through?
is literally the director of admissions, John Cook. "How can I help you?" And I said, "Hi, Mr. Cook. My name is Hasan Davis. I live in Atlanta. I applied to come to school there in Kentucky, but classes start next week, and I haven't received my acceptance letter yet. So I'm just calling to see where it is."
Yeah.
And he
Assume
did
the
this
sale,
really,
yeah.
he did this real deep, like, I can't believe I got to have this conversation breath. And he put me on hold and went to pull my file out of the garbage can or wherever they put that, "Oh, no, you don't." And he came back and said, "Look, Mr. Davis, Berea is one of the most competitive application processes in the country. I mean, like Harvard and Yale competitive. We get thousands and thousands of applications every year for just a couple hundred spots. I've filled them all, but a couple of students decided to go somewhere else, and I've got replacements for them on my desk, so I don't think it's going to work out for you." And I said, "Mr. Cook, I don't think it's not an answer." And he said, "Okay, fine. I'll call you back and confirm that." About an hour later, he calls back. He says, "Okay, Mr. Davis." Oh, he's imagine somebody behind him, like, "Just like we rehearsed it, right? I think we're going to give you a chance." And so all of a sudden, I'm a college student. Now I've got a 1.67 GPA, just got expelled from alternative school, got my GED after all of this drama, but I'm going to be a college student. I don't know what that means, but I'm ready for it. So Berea became that place for me, where everything changed about all the things that I dreamed of being, my mama told me I had a right to be, could actually live. And so that was the start of it. And there I learned Berea was the first higher education interracial institution in the South, founded
wow.
during slavery, in a slave state by a radical abolitionist who said that men and women, black and white, all children under God have a right to be honored and served and then be service to the world. You're right. And so being in a place like that gave me a chance to imagine myself different. Like I said, I got expelled twice. And I kept coming back and convincing them just one more second chance. And I finally, the third time I came back, I convinced them to let me talk to the committee and said, you know, if you gave me $3,000, of course, I'm always asking for more. And this is the '80s, so I'm like 20 grand for this new computer called a Mac Plus. It's got Microsoft Write 1.1 with spell check. Excuse me, the very first spell check program.
Yeah.
And as if I had that, I can get what is in here that I keep thinking is so good out, and you could see it. And if it's good, we'll keep it. If not, I'll leave. I will just leave this time. And I think that sounded really good to them. And so they brought me back. They loaned me the money. I was on every probation plus double secret probation. But with the right tools, I mean, I still have it actually, the computer, but I carried it with me to every class. 25 pounds. I'd set it up.
Oh my
bing,
goodness.
and I made the dean's list my first semester back. I got off all the probations. I was elected homecoming king.
Woo!
I was voted president of student body.
There we go.
I got the lead in the school play because the theater became my thing, right? That was the reason I got in the theater. I was mentioning that is because when they let me back the last time, they said, you have to declare a major by July 1st or we're going to kick you out again. And I hadn't thought about it much. And I was like, okay. So I declared a communications major that took all of my theater training, which is the one thing I could do well without having the challenges with my neurodiversity. And I turned it in on July 1st. And they said, I'm sorry, this is actually an independent major. In order to do that, it has to be approved by committee. The committee doesn't meet till October. So this doesn't meet the expectation. I said, well, but your letter says that I have to declare a major by July 1st. I don't know what you all have to do. And I just walked out. I just walked out because I don't want to stay in the conversation with it. And so that's how I became a communications major. I took all my theater training because I knew it was the one thing that I could do and not have to worry about the challenges of trying to compete on somebody else's battlefield. Because I've been doing this to survive my whole life. I've been trying to interpret the world and show, create a relationship with people wherever I am who completely don't know me, that I need to know me in order to believe that I have a right to be there, right? And so that kind of, when I left there, I went to law school, which is just theater.
Yeah, it's amazing when you learn that the legal system is not about right and wrong. It's about winning and losing.
Performance, yeah. I mean, when I got to our first class was about courtroom etiquette, and I saw the setup, and I said, wait a minute, audience, motivation, script. Oh, you all are in trouble. I was top litigator all 3 years, but one of the things I missed is I missed performing, and so I said I want to get back to performing, but I know I won't be able to go and do big productions anymore. So how do I keep this passion and use it in the bigger world? And this living history thing, a lot of humanities councils across the country were starting to revitalize the Chautauqua framework. And so I was investigating what Kentucky was doing. Berea College has a lot of great stories with that unique origin. And so my first living history was the story of Berea's first black graduate. Escaped slavery at 16, joined the Union Army. After that, he was brought by the founder of Berea, went on to be a minister and educator. And so it was when I was doing that that someone approached me once after a show and said, you're really, really good at this. You should think about Lewis and Clark. There's a bicentennial coming up in a few years. And I was like, I appreciate that. And I think I'm pretty good, right? Somebody said you should be in L.A. or New York, but I don't think I could do Lewis or Clark. I think there'd be a whole lot of mad people in the world. And they're like, no. There was this guy, York. And I'll be honest. I was like, who?
Yeah.
Which surprised me. And so it made me curious, and I started doing the research. And first I started finding these kind of Lewis and Clark half history, half romance novel kind of things.
Weird genre.
And in those is like, the dashing hero, but the dashing hero can't do all the really good stuff in romance novels, right? With people out there. And so then York shows up, and he becomes, kind of the fall guy for this bull stud of the plains, or this step in flesh. Oh Lord, Master Clark, if I wasn't being told to breathe, I probably just, And I was like, yeah, I'm
doesn't-
good. I don't think that story needs to be. But before I abandoned it, I went back to the journals,
Oh yeah.
and when I
real-
started to look at the primary sources, the people who were there, the men who grew up in a society that told them that just because of an accident of birth, no courage, no high intellect. I mean, you may have those, but you don't have to display courage, intellect, ingenuity, any of that. But just because you were born with this that you have no control over, you automatically have domain over all of this. These men who wrote almost 1 million words of text over the course of 4 years did not say one negative thing about the one person that the whole society told them it was okay to say these things about. And that the absence of that spoke more than the presence of anything else. And I said, okay, I have to tell this story. Please.
Go go for it.
Okay, excuse me. I was just going to say, I think the first book that outside the romance novels that he looked at was In Search of York by Robert Betts.
Yeah.
And at the Interpretive Center at the Library and Archives, we have Mr. Betts' original papers upon which
Wow.
he wrote
Yeah.
Really?
all of that in the context of exactly what Hasan is talking about. And so the last time he was here, we were
I got to go
fortunate
see him.
he
Yes.
got to go see him
Wow.
because Mr. Betts was struggling with what do I call this person? Is it Negro? Is it Black?
Mhm.
And so if your visitors are ever interested, the Lewis and Clark Trail Alliance has that at the Interpretive Center. So that fits into the context of
Absolutely.
his research on.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's incredible that we have that here.
Yeah.
Yes, and there are other delights to be found out there as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Carol will drop nuggets
Yes.
for us
Yes,
all along
I love
this
that.
journey.
Exactly
Thank you,
right.
Carol.
She
Yeah.
knows where the gems are
That's
buried. That's right.
That's great.
But that was the journals was like the foundation. Then Robert Betts did such an amazing job of digging through all of the fantasy of it, the romanticizing of it, and like the super sizing of it, right, to really just give you this clear picture, and so that was a really good start. And then Jim Holmberg, who was a Clark family historian at the Filson Society in Louisville, I reached out to him when I first started doing this project, and he was editing the letters from William Clark that no one ever knew existed. They had just been discovered, so I guess it's been about 40 years now, maybe 50. I don't know the timeline, but William Clark's brother, Jonathan, his family was there, all the family was there in Louisville, but his descendants, I guess, in one of their houses found all these steamer trunks of old stuff and decided instead of just tossing it all out, somebody went through it. There were all these letters from William Clark that he wrote to his brother after the expedition. So it's the part that nobody's ever known about, what happened to Clark and York's relationship, what happened to York. And so all those letters became such a powerful, especially at the bicentennial, the 200th commemoration, a chance to tell a story that no one had ever heard about William Clark, about this expedition, about York. And so all of those pieces together gave me the framework for the story that I wrote and built into this conversation. And then as the bicentennial started, and I started moving across the country, engaging with communities, with the national parks, with the commemoration, I would encounter all of these elders and story holders for indigenous communities that they encountered. And there would be these gifts that they would give me, some literally physical gifts, but also just this wisdom. I remember in the big signature event in Louisville, one of the elders from the Nez Perce Nation was there as a representative. And as we were about to start the big march to the kill boat, singing the songs, it was this big pomp and circumstance. He says, you're York. I said, yes, sir. He says, come here. It wasn't a question. So, I'm in line, but okay.
Yeah.
And so he pulls me off, away from the cameras. And he says, if you're going to tell this story, You need to tell it right. And then he says, when they came through the mountains, this would have been coming through the through the pass. So we knew they were coming way before they came through, and we knew that they'd probably be half dead if they even made it out. We had already decided that everybody dies, we bury the bodies, and go about our business because we're not having it. But the first group that came through, Clark had split them into two groups to better the chances of somebody getting out and finding help. The first group came through. Clark and York was part of that group. He says that first group that came through had that black man with them. And because in our culture, the only people that have the right to paint their skin black are people who have achieved some great honor or who are in deep mourning and deserve our complete attention. Either way, our only attention is to them. He says, so the only reason we have a Lewis and Clark expedition to celebrate, the only reason this nation goes from sea to shining sea is because that black man was the first one to walk out of that mountain. And because of that, we decided, he said, for better or for worse, we decided we had to listen to whatever came next. So if you're going to tell this story, you need to make sure you tell this story, his story, like it's his, not somebody else's. And I just said, yes, sir. And so those kind of things and experiences, from the Missouri Oto tribe gave me stories of their chiefs and it started to build this whole story that went way beyond this guy who's, when I asked the historian once, who's that guy? Oh, he's just Clark's slave, right?
Right.
And so it changed everything about what made him a part of this lore and legacy as a hero, not just as a side character.
Well, and the Native American story is never written down to
Exactly.
be able to
The oral
have that
tradition, that's
research
right.
component.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Because would we have been able to hear that story regardless? If you had not done this, those stories wouldn't have even come out
That's right.
because of that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Shannon, you did a good job.
Y'all just cut me loose. You just cut me loose and let me go.
That's
That's
please.
I'm like, I don't know.
There's been very few episodes where we've just sat here in silence and excited about it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want to know next?
So the bicentennial was how many years ago?
2003 to 2006.
Okay.
And the archives of the bicentennial are at the Interpretive Center as
Perfect.
well.
Thanks, guys. Well, and what I find most interesting is since so many history books are so bad, like the things we aren't taught. But what we get is this 2 or 4 year glimpse of Lewis and Clark, and we know nothing before the expedition. We know nothing after the expedition, and there's so much more to learn. We learned that there was drama. A couple of years ago, we went to visit the Lewis and Clark Trail Heritage Foundation, and we were talking. They're like, "Oh yeah, well now we got this drama over how Clark died or Lewis died or something." I'm like, "Wait, how can there be current drama about any of this?"
Yeah.
But it's these stories that you get along the way that all of a sudden open up, well, maybe this has some questions, or the letters that you get to read about that no one ever knew existed that tell a little bit more story after the things that happen. So,
And so the stories after are a pretty big piece of what we know now. As Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story. Because what we assumed, maybe because he wanted to, but because that was kind of the way the story was written. They came back, all the soldiers got their land and gold, and we began expansion, and life went on. Everybody was happy. In 1836, maybe, Washington Irving interviewed William Clark, and he asked him, what became of your man New York? And Clark, goes on about, we got back, I freed him, set up this great business, running freight, gave him a team of horses and a wagon, running freight from Richmond, Kentucky to Nashville, Tennessee. He failed miserably. He was, kind of slides into that, settled into that. He's just a black man. He couldn't really do business. I hear He died of cholera in Tennessee. He's in an unmarked grave, trying to get back to me to be my slave again, wishing he was my slave again, right? So that was kind of the end of the story for almost 200 years. What was interesting is that the letters that William Clark wrote to his brother tell a different story. It talks about York agitating. That's what he says to his brother. He's agitating, talking about his freedom like he did something so important. So it's clear that York, after this experience, understands very differently what his value is and who he is to himself in the world. And he wants some of that, right? And he's talking about his wife. I told him, just get rid of that wife. I'm going to get him a new wife when we get to St. Louis. I'm tired of him talking about her, and she's the one putting him up to it. So all this turmoil that kind of shades this idea that Clark was like, oh, York, yeah, you did great, so have a great life. I'll see you at Thanksgiving, that kind of thing. And at some point, he tells his brothers, if he doesn't perform for you like he's not performing for me, treat him harshly, give him a harsh master, let him see how good his life has been. If it's really bad, trade him, sell him down in New Orleans, where it's really bad for slaves. And so that was York. I mean, Clark, and really, I can see it, the betrayal when the whole world tells you this is absolutely your right as a white man with power and authority from a family of means to control the complete essence of somebody else. They grew up together their whole life. He was like his right hand. He would probably move to do things before Clark even realized he needed them done. Right? That kind of thing. And all of a sudden, it's like your right hand going, no, I'm done.
I'm good.
I want to go somewhere else. And so he can't even see the human connect. He just is outraged about this betrayal. And so you kind of see that. And so to have the opportunity to build such a powerful story to tell, and it's not just those pieces are hard parts of it, but that's not the story. The story is teamwork and esprit de corps. The story is the courage to go out and build towards something, even if you can't see where it's headed. The story is diversity, and and people seem to be concerned a lot about that word now. But look at this story. We call it. It is the seminal American birth story. This is our origin story. Lewis and Clark. See the shining sea. At the edge of the world, it's Oregon. Y'all, just be sure.
Yeah.
When they get there, these two officers who were men of aristocracy, white and in power, turn around to this ragtag crew that they brought with them. And instead of doing what officers do and telling soldiers, this is what we're going to do next, instead of what rich people do to poor folks, and this is what you're going to do next, instead of what white men have the power to say to women and to people of color, this is what you're going to do next. They say, I need everybody here to tell me what you think we ought to do next. So at the edge of the world, a black man, an indigenous woman, about half a dozen French and indigenous men, right? We don't talk about the boatmen, but they were a lot. Their lead boatmen, hunters, and interpreters were all half Indian. And so this ragtag group of men, rich men and poor men, sat down and lived out, in that moment, right? This idea of the Declaration. I mean, so clear that it took all of us to get here. We need everybody's voice to get to our next great thing. I mean, that was the moment. It would be another 60 years before the end of legal race-based slavery, the 13th Amendment. It would be another 100 years before the women's suffrage movement gathered enough steam for women to have the ability, not necessarily the safety, but the ability to vote. Another 120 years before Native Americans were even considered to be American citizens here in their own land. But right there at the edge of the world, William Clark and Meriwether Lewis looked at each other and said, we could not have made any of this happen without all of those people and the differences they bring, right? We wouldn't have been able to do this with all of our buddies from college, all of our buddies we were in the Army with, right? All the officers and the third or eighth sons of the people who were important. Those people would not have been able to navigate and translate and to create the connections like this group of people that people are like, why are you taking all in? Right? And so, I mean,
yeah.
Think about that. At the edge of the world, when it all mattered, they were able to take a deep breath and look around and really say that this is what it takes to build a nation from coast to coast. This is what it takes to make a president's dream literally live. And the saddest part of it is that when they got back, they said, okay, that was pretty cool.
Let's
But
go back to normal.
yeah, we can't be telling everybody this because it makes people nervous.
Yeah.
And so a whole so 200 years we shut out the most important part of what we call the most important story of who we are. And for me, that was the thing that I said. And as I said, this is the reason I have to keep telling this story. I've been telling for 25 years now, because I still think that is the lesson. That is the most powerful lesson of this. It's not even about York, but it's about using him to convey this story of us in a way that folk can feel it and hear it. I had a gentleman once. I'm sorry, I told you I was ADHD.
We're here for it.
One of our big events in they call them the signature events during the bicentennial, with the big pomp and circumstance, and the 10 of many voices and all the stuff going on. Kamiah, Idaho, at the edge of the Nez Perce Nation, and I was there for school programs, main stage programs, and lectures. After I did my main stage program one night, the next morning, a little town like downtown's a square block, and they've got like one diner, and I'm sitting there, and a couple comes in. The woman comes in first. Back in the mountains, we call her in Kentucky mountains, Appalachia. We call them holiness. The long denim dress, plain blouse, long hair, no makeup. And she pauses at the table and says, "Thank you so much for the program last night. It was really interesting." I was like, "Thank you, ma'am." And like this big shadow blocks out the sun in front of me. Look, there's this huge lumberjack. This dude is huge, right? He just kind of stops there, and I'm like, I don't know this guy, so I stand up because
I'm not
I
sitting
don't know
down
what
for
this
this.
is. Right? And he reaches out and grabs my hand, and he says, "I have needed to hear that story my whole life, and I want to thank you for being brave enough to come to my home and tell me that story." And he just starts crying. And so now these two big grown men, and finally we kind of get ourselves back together, and he kind of walks off quickly to join his wife. But those are the kind of experiences over the last 25 years that have just mesmerized me and told me that I have to keep telling this story. Right now, I'm a lawyer by training. I'm a motivational speaker. I speak around the world, but I always come back to this, because in the spaces where I get to tell this story, when I look out into the audience and I see, because it's the story is a roller coaster, right? There's laughing, as we're talking about amazing camaraderie, we're talking about friendship, teamwork, and we're talking about the pain. And I built the story like that because that's how our lives are, right? And too often what we do is we always want to just focus on the good stuff. I mean, we have this, people telling us now, we don't talk about the bad, but if we don't talk about the bad, we can't recognize how amazing the good is. And that's what I've really learned from this over all these years, is that when we get people together and we give them an experience of a person, not a lecture, not a pointing fingers about this is what you did, but look at this human being here and how much we can do to continue to see people individually and then start to think about what they give us, it changes everything. And so it's been an adventure. It is an adventure, and every chance I get to come here, whenever Carol asks me, and we and I always tell her, you all have been so supportive of me and just this journey and making sure the story gets out there, whatever it takes to make it happen. I talked to my wife because, she's like, "You're going to do some free stuff again, aren't you?" I was like, we're not going to go in the hole, baby. And so she's actually okay. She says, as long as we don't go in the hole, I'm going to stop pushing you on this, because this story is important and our ability to get it out as many places as we can and whatever it takes to do that. And so this community has been great, communities across the country, but I've been here in Great Falls like 5 times in the last 18 months. So it says something. But I think that especially the last performance I did here, and we're doing the documentary tonight. But the last time I was here, I actually got to do my entire program at the Interpretive Center, my York performance, and then one at the high school. But the audience at the Interpretive Center, both times I've done it in the last 20 years has just been such a special space, right? The energy, the question and answer after, and the real intention about seeing and understanding people's story, not just kind of the highlights of it. And so I even when I get to come and visit, it's always great because the audience engagement and the folks who know Lewis and Clark as a thing, because that's kind of the brand,
Yeah.
but also want to know the stories of York and how those all intertwine to create a more powerful story is always exciting.
Well, and I think there's just so for what is Lewis and Clark, the core of discovery. What does that get in a history book? Like a week or a day?
A few days.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And you're trying to cover the story, the elements of what this expedition was, and we don't get that information. And I don't think anybody can appreciate all the details of what happened along the way.
Mhm.
I can still recall we had the honor to host the Berlin Airlift veterans here in Great Falls.
Wow.
And I tell this story all the time, but it was a really amazing story. So I've got these World War II pilots that are here planning their reunion. It was the first time most of them had been back to Great Falls since they were trained here for the Berlin Airlift. And this gentleman, 93 years old, president of their association, we're walking side by side 2 days. And on the second day, we're sitting there in front of the diorama at the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center. And he's just looking at it. And he looks at me and he looks at that and he goes, that guy right there, just out of middle of nowhere, that guy right there, I bet you he was a troublemaker. I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, but this was a military expedition. Nobody fell out of line. He's like, yeah, right. And then he tells me this story about the time he got drunk at the bar in Germany and had to run out the back before he got caught and then had to jump in a plane. And this is history that comes at you one-on-one with stories you're never going to find anywhere else that helps shift those perceptions of what you think you know, or even just the deeper meaning of what happened on this expedition.
Yeah.
I've had such a joy on this podcast alone, just getting to hear different stories about Lewis and Clark that we know nothing about because we're not very smart about some of these things, you know?
100%. Yeah.
And then we just get this hour snippet of like one thing, like one item, and you get to delve into the story of an entire human that was a part of this expedition that we in history books don't even get to know really what the deal was. Or even, you know, you wonder, you get to learn from the Nez Perce about this entire component that's never written down.
Right.
Does Clark ever get to know this?
Right.
Like, it's not like they said, oh, this guy saved
Yeah,
your
guy right
yeah,
here.
you could have
It
been
worked for
dead.
him.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
We had your number.
He doesn't get to hear that, you know? And then you don't get to hear the second or the first person side to what this story was or has been. And I liken it to the guy, I'm going to screw this up completely, the astronaut, I'm going to say Glenn Powell, but that's not correct.
That's an actor.
Yep, he's not the guy I'm talking about. One of the big astronauts, he goes, I get frozen in time because everybody knows me for what I've done, not what I'm doing. And I think that's an interesting component in history because he would say, I've done so many other things.
Right.
This is the one thing anybody wants to talk to me about.
Yeah.
And it was such a small period in my life that nobody else cares about. And that's what I love about hearing this story and your drawing to it. Oh, it's amazing. I'm going to shut up, Shannon.
But this is a perfect segue to talk about the documentary that is going to be at the History Museum tonight.
Which will have already happened when this episode comes out.
But it will,
yes,
it will be shown.
It'll live on.
No, it will be shown starting next winter at the Interpretive Center.
Wonderful.
Several times a day. And
Oh,
so
wonderful.
In the theater.
this is a very important part.
Fantastic.
And you might
Yeah.
want Hasan to give you a little background about the documentary.
Yes.
Yeah,
Please
give us
do.
the details of what this documentary is.
So the documentary is called Big Medicine, York Outdoors. And it was the brainchild I've been working with the national parks.
Ooh, even sexier there.
For sexy chocolate.
We told him to pull his mic closer, folks. That's what's happening.
Yeah. We're having too much fun here, y'all. So I've worked with the national parks since the bicentennial, off and on, and in the last few years, really reconnected with them about how do we continue to tell York's story and use it to support the national parks and kind of bring attention to all these spaces that we want folk to enjoy, these natural spaces. And so a couple years ago, some of the folks at the Lewis and Clark headquarters started putting together a proposal. What if we did like an outdoor documentary where we kind of centered York's story, but also used it as a way, excuse me, something's coming. Excuse me. Also use it as a way to bring attention to and draw folk who don't normally see themselves as welcome or able to access the outdoors. Usually people of color, the folks who urban folks who kind of see the outdoors and natural spaces as dangerous.
Yeah. It could kill you.
Yeah. You know, when I was a kid, that was we don't know. We don't go out there. You know, my wife's a country girl. She still gets me because I wear my shoes in the house. I'm like, baby, this is survival. You know, and so we started talking. What could that look like? And so we think about there are a lot of outdoor educators and explorers and folk who are doing good work, people of color. So what if we pulled together a group of professionals across kind of the outdoor spaces, and we did our own little expedition. Came back up to the Missouri, spent 4 or 5 days moving down the same waters as Lewis and Clark and York did, and have some conversations about what it means to be outdoors and how do we encourage and engage folk to see themselves as part of this natural world as a right that we all have and an exciting part of what it means to be in these amazing, beautiful places like Great Falls. And so over the course of a year, we put together this team. We found a production team. They were able to get money from the Department of Interior and National Parks and some other supporters. And we did an expedition. So we came into Great Falls about last August, set up, had a crew, a boating crew, outfitter from down the road. I don't know if we can say places.
You can say it.
You can say it.
Yeah. The upper Missouri River Outfitters, great folks. So they were the team that supported us and kept us safe on the water. We had a 5-camera crew, a sound person, and so we got all of this stuff onto the water with 8 outdoor adventurers. And for 4 days, we moved down the river, and I told York's story, and we kind of talked about the impact of that, and more importantly, kind of imagined what it'd be like in a space where everybody felt comfortable and safe and believed that they had right to access this beautiful outdoors and this beautiful natural world, and we could make that happen for more people. And so using Lewis and Clark as a way to really center that as again, it is our founding story, the story of navigating these natural spaces. And so the documentary, leans into that. It's us over those 4 days on the water, having conversation, enjoying it. And I think that's part of it too. For me, even looking back, I've had a chance to go to 5 or 6 premieres in different parts of the country as folks have, like we're doing here in Great Falls, have shared the story publicly. And just being in the room and the start of the conversations is pretty amazing. But every time I watch the documentary myself, my son is in it. He's one of the folks, which is just super bonus for me. To kind of see him and be there with him in this space. He watched me growing up. He watched me doing this, and now he's a living history interpreter too.
Wow.
And so it's just really cool. But watching and listening to the folks talk about their experience and the wishes they have for more folk to want to enjoy this, to feel safe and encouraged, and believing that as Americans, this is the space where we all get to see and experience God and the natural world. And so you can tell it wasn't moving for me at all. This experience, clearly, but so somewhere in that is the where we got to this part of it, and
That's
we're excited
amazing.
to get it out into the world and share it.
So I have to ask, because you bring York to life, but Hasan has this amazing story as well. Do we get to see both people in the documentary?
Yeah, there are little bits of me there. Yeah, we don't talk about my story that much, but since you, as a segue, we are trying to do a next documentary. We're trying to find funding. The national parks had actually had quite a bit done before all of this stuff happened, and we're not quite sure. But I'm really excited that there may actually be a next piece. The next piece will be a road show with me and my son. Starting in Kentucky and driving across the country along the trail to Oregon, visiting with Lewis and Clark communities and indigenous communities, and so unfolding my story and how I got into York's story as we engage with other people and learn their stories of York and Lewis and Clark.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, doesn't it? I mean, so I'm excited.
With good reason.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
We had it. We had our last had a production meeting January 15th, and they were like, we just about got all the money together. We need this last few things.
Yeah.
And then January 21st, they sent a note.
Yep.
Never mind.
Yep.
You know,
World went crazy for a little bit here.
And so, but I have confidence, and more importantly, I think that there's just so many amazing folk out there trying to create a way where there's no way that I think it's going to happen, and I'm really excited about the possibility.
And Carol, remind us again when we can see this, because we'll have missed it this time when the episode comes out, but it will be available at the Interpretive Center this winter.
Yes,
Okay.
I am not sure of the exact date, but they will be showing it several times a day in their rotation.
Yeah.
And it is entirely almost filmed in the White Cliffs, and so people will be able to see the White Cliffs and live what he's talking about.
Yeah. What a neat experience. Yes, please keep us posted, and we'll let listeners know when they can come and make that part of their experience. Hasan, I'm wondering... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm wondering, I'm looping back to kind of the beginning of the conversation when you talked about growing up with kind of the neurodiversity, the ADHD, all those things. When you were, 11, get arrested for the first time, that situation, and you look at your life now and what you're able to bring. And I just go back to you talking about cracking open that history book and just seeing that one, brief image.
Yeah.
And now fast forwarding your life and looking at how you are playing a part in kind of reckoning what you saw as a child in that book. Can you talk a little bit about that as you look back over your life to this point?
Yeah.
If you didn't know, she's the hard-hitting journalist of the team. Like, that's what she's done. So
It's a balance. It's a balance.
yeah, I just bring stupid questions.
No, not at all.
I'm processing in real time, so you see me blinking. It's just it's not a glitch in the system. For me, it is those experiences early on really drove my desire to do all the work I do. So, in addition to this living history and telling the stories that way, I do tell my own story now. Do a lot of motivational speaking and go into schools, and especially with those kids who, in the alternative school were being put out. I want those kids. I want them to see somebody who knows their story and who still has more joy days than sad days, right? I was commissioner of juvenile justice for the state of Kentucky for 6 years. And in that, I ran the entire system, $100 million annual budget, 36 facilities, 3,000 kids, 1,300 employees. But every day I went in saying, these kids are not what you see, right? Because we have a real sense of who kids are when they show up. And so using my own story to say, look, I know this. I'm not sitting up here making assumptions about what this system does to children. I know, and I know what it can do for children because I know what that hope looks like. I know what it means to be a hope dealer, to have a hope dealer. And so in the living history pieces and these other parts, the story is a way is a reckoning. I go into prisons and I tell York's story, and I did. I went into one prison. Two of my brothers are incarcerated. You know, two of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my entire life. You know, I've shook hands with the president. I've testified before Congress twice. I gave a lecture to world leaders in a castle on top of a mountain in Switzerland about using hope to fight extremist ideology. But still, my brothers are like brilliant, brilliant. But they got caught up as in our childhood and got to a point where they couldn't believe we had a right to be more, like our mother said, and just accepted what we were in the moment. And so I see those in the young people I serve and deal with every day. But when I go in with the history piece, people will say, well, why you're, they don't understand this. But these stories, York's story is such a powerful story of someone who the world told you only have one value, and it is in the service of somebody else, and that you'll never have a voice, you'll never have a presence, and so just accept that until your life is over. And if that's not an analogy
Right.
for what so many young men and women are being told in these systems because they grew up poor, because they grew up neurodiverse, because they grew up in the wrong home. And so when they see this story and they experience it, like I said, like the mountain man in Idaho, when they experience it instead of just watch it. I did this program in a prison. There were about 150 inmates, and this is a maximum security level 4 prison. And one of the young men stood up crying afterwards, and he said, if somebody would have told me this is who I could be, maybe I could have made a different choice. And it just kind of stopped everybody. All these old heads, all these gangbangers, and there's this moment of silence went across the chapel where everybody just sat there, and you could see all the heads nodding, like, if we knew there were other stories, then we could actually aspire to other lives. And so for me, knowing that because I walked on the edge of that my whole life, I mean, that's the mission. Whether I'm on the stage telling my story personally or I'm telling the story of York and the others, it's that same story, looking back, to move forward, so that we can understand things and maybe get courage from the fact that we're not going to be the first ones that have experienced something really ridiculous and still have the audacity to dream and imagine we could be more and actually be meaningful to the communities that we're in instead of just being present in them.
Tell me other people that we should learn about beyond York and
Wow.
yourself
Here.
that you've studied, that you've dug into, that you're like,
So
here's some other stories.
The stories, so Angus Augustus Burley, which is my very first interpretation, is a great story. A.A. Burley grew up, his mother was, his father was an English sea captain, and so his mother was Caribbean, but they raised him as a free child in Virginia, but his father died when he was 2.
Oh.
And all bets were off. And so his mother and he were both captured, sold into slavery, brought to Kentucky. And he escaped at 16, joined the Union armies, even though Kentucky was one of the few states that was a slave state that still stayed with the Union, right? So the Emancipation Proclamation specifically exempted them from liberating their slaves. They still built the second largest training camp for black soldiers in Kentucky. So it created all this chaos. And he went there and served, and then went to Berea and became his first black graduate. And Angus has just got a great story. Joe Louis, the boxer, there's a lot of hit. We know Joe Louis, kind of externally, but internally, there's so much about him. When Pearl Harbor was bombed, he went and enlisted, gave up being the richest athlete, the Michael Jordan of his day, the richest athlete in the world, for $28 a month. And there were a lot of people who said, why would you do this to a country that still calls you boy? He says, because, I have to set an example for what my expectation is, right? I've had all these things. I've been gifted with a great life, and I need to show that there's a place for that, right? So he did that. He donated almost more than $200,000 to the Army and Navy Relief Fund And the IRS came after him for it later, but he gave up all his winnings for his next 2 fights after Pearl Harbor was bombed for the family support, even though the only positions that a black person could hold in the Navy was a chauffeur, a cook, or a valet. And people said, you shouldn't be supporting. He says, well, if we don't figure out how to stay in the conversation, it won't change.
Right.
And so there's a lot of subtle things about Joe Louis, right? I mean, he had his other issues, lots of them, but those things I thought really amazing. And there's one more. I've been researching for a long time, and I need to just finally go ahead and do it. But his name is James Jacques Boulard. Right? His father was Haitian, freed slave. He grew up in Georgia. His mother was indigenous, but there was a large family. Post-slavery, his father worked in a mill and got into it with one of the other people in the mill who was white, and because he was black, even being correct wasn't acceptable. And so they came and burned down the house and attacked him. And Boulard, at the age of 10 or 11, decided that he didn't like that anymore. So literally, he left. He took off with Romany Circus, started riding horses for them and doing stunts in their little circus. They told him about all the great opportunities for black people in Europe, and they think that he would be treated much better there, so he should go to Europe. So he makes his way to Virginia, stows away on a steamer, gets caught, luckily, because he would have probably died, but he gets caught by the folk there, but they put him to work, give him gear. When he gets to England, they give him some money, give him some equipment, some clothes, and say, go to France. And he goes to France and becomes he becomes a photographer, a fitness specialist, he just kind of does everything. But then he joins the French Foreign Legion.
Okay.
And he joins the French Foreign Legion just as Germany starts their invasion of France, the kind of the kickoff to World War I. And so his unit gets decimated, and he survives. But while he's convalescing, he's like, I still want to serve. And he's talking to someone. He kind of sees the airfield. He's like, I want to be a pilot. They're like, excuse me, you can't be a pilot. He's like, why not? Well, you're black. Okay.
I don't see
But
the
he decides,
correlation.
and so he becomes a pilot, becomes a fighter pilot for France, flying the escadrilles, confirmed kills and all of that. He's an ace. Then America finally decides to join the war. America gets into the war, and it becomes a world war. And so when America is there, they've got troops there. Boulard goes to the American Army Air Corps and says, hey, I want to be a pilot. They're like, black people can't fly planes. And he's like, but I flew my plane over here to tell you. And they're like, no. So he goes back and he finishes out the war flying for France. At the end of the war, he settles there in France. He starts a little club, starts a couple of clubs, juke joints, and like Langston Hughes is at one point, Langston Hughes is his dishwasher. So he's kind of, as the Harlem Renaissance is making its way across the ocean. World War II starts, and when Germany occupies France, Germans think that black people aren't smart, but they love their music, so they let his club stay open, and all the officers start to use it as kind of their hangout.
Oh.
And since black people couldn't possibly know how to speak German, they're absolutely talking about everything, and so he becomes a spy for the resistance, and he's just taking notes on everything and pass. And so I always say it's sailor, soldier, pilot, spy. I mean, if that's not a story, right? And so at one point,
so many lives in one.
I know.
Yeah.
So he eventually comes back to the States, and Jim Crow and all that. He's a longshoreman working on the boats on the docks, and eventually he's an elevator operator in New York in one of the high rises. And at some point, a dignitary and officers from the French Army Corps come looking for him, and they present him with the Medal of War and ask him to come to France, for a ceremony for the soldiers that served, during the wars. So, I'm like, yeah, I think that story has to be told.
Mm-hmm.
I've been holding on to it because York has been such an amazing thing for me. But I've been holding on to it for about 10 years now and researching it and putting all the pieces together. And one day I'm going to get to it too. So yeah, I'll stop there because I've got this
That's
Rolodex
amazing.
going
Oh,
now.
that's awesome.
But
I have one more question that's not related to that. Your son in the documentary.
yes.
What role does he play?
In the doc, well, he always says that he's there to support me, which I love. I think his mama told him that. I was going through some medical issues this last year, and so he thought, he assumed that his role was just to make sure that life was easy for me, carry dad stuff, and it's hard for me not being the big guy, and he's 6'4", he's huge, and so I can let him do those things, but I knew he was there because he has such a critical mind. I mean, he does his living history stuff. He's just got this great sense of himself. But it's funny because the folks when we were all planning it, when I threw his name in the box as soon as we were looking for people who should be part of, and nobody responded. And you don't be the nepo guy, right? Or I need my boy there. So I was like, okay, because I wasn't going to press it. My wife's like, what? Because I think he deserves to be there. I didn't just want him to come and hang out. But at the last minute, one of the other folk, had to bow out. And so I said, you know what? Let me send you his information, and you think about it. And they looked at so why didn't we think about this first? I was like, that's a good point.
That's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but he became pretty central in the documentary. It's only 35 minutes long, but he shows up a lot, and he's that guy. I mean, and I love that for him. The great thing about him, his interpretation, he actually tells a story now of a man named Monk Estill, who was the first freed black man in Kentucky, who served during the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, excuse me. He was a black powder maker, enslaved to one of the officers of the garrison there at Fort Boonesboro, where Daniel Boone was, and all that stuff. But this summer, the Smithsonian Institute invited him to their Folk Life Festival, which is their big festival they've had for 50 years now. And so he performed on the National Mall every day for 7 days.
Wow.
And did workshops and panels. And for me, I did one workshop with him. It was like intergenerational, passing on the story, legacy type thing. And one of the things that I really enjoyed that kind of started with this trip last year was being able to sit with him as a grown person and think about, one, the influence I was able to have on him, but now the influence he's having on me. When I watch him and the way he interprets and navigates the world, it gives me lots of thoughts about, what has changed and what continues to change in how we tell stories and how we own our truth. And it's just been really exciting to have the privilege of that, for someone who, was expected and thought I might be dead, at 15, if I got lucky, to do this is. So when Malcolm was born, so before Malcolm was born, his mom and I, we had dated for a while, and we never lived in the same city for a long time because we were doing different work, and then we decided we were going to live in the same city when he was born, which was a real stretch for me. Because I've had a go bag, an emergency go bag since I was 6 years old, since, my father attacked my mom, and I knew that life was impermanent, and at any moment you need to go somewhere, and you have to have these basic things. And that was just a truth. I would tell his mom, who I love dearly, and in fact she was brave enough to kind of navigate this chaos with me. I'd say things like, I really love you, but if you don't hear from me again, it's not because of you, right? And it's possible. I just want you to know that. And let's go watch a game. And so I was actually on tour performing the summer he was born and doing Chautauqua's Living History. And he was, we scheduled him. I told Dream, I said, we only have this week. This is the only weekend that I have off on the 6-week tour doing doing living history. And people are like, you can't schedule stuff like this. I'm like, well, we're going to have to. And so I did 3 weeks in Missouri. I'm in like Columbus, Missouri. I finished up my performance on a Wednesday. They had a baby shower for me. I jumped in my truck and I drove 10 hours home. And I got home, woke up, Dreama, and took her to the hospital. Had the baby on Friday. Saturday we came home. Sunday I got back on the road to meet up with the tour outside of Chicago, but at the hospital when he was born, I was sitting with her, and I looked over and I said, when he graduates from high school, I'm gonna be, and I just caught in my throat, and my wife's very Appalachian, what's your problem? Are you having a stroke or something? I was like, I said, I'm going to be 50 years old. I have never in my entire life put myself that far in the future. I've never, with all the grace that I've had, and at that point I was finally having experiences that made me, life was good.
Yeah.
But I never had the courage to imagine that it was going to stay good.
Yeah.
Right? And I said, but I'm going to be 50 years old. And that became the mark for me. I went home, and before I left, get back on the road, I took my go bag out of the closet. And I unpacked it. Because I'm not running anymore, right? I'm not running from anything anymore. I'm walking towards something, and this baby is that, right? And so now I'm on the river with this guy with this deep baritone voice, that's mine, right?
Yeah.
That I gave to the world, and he's given me so much. So I'm blithering right now, y'all. But that's, for me, and I couldn't have ever convinced them in the way that he convinced them by being present, that he was absolutely the last person that they needed on this crew, right? And, but.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, with that, do we really need to say much more other than
I
this
have
man is
far
amazing?
more questions, but I think that's a perfect spot to end. Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing
thank
so
you
many
both.
stories today with us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol, for making
Of course.
what I have to assume you had a role in making happen.
She did.
Thank you for being in our community. Thank you for telling the story of York. Thank you for creating a documentary. And I'm just going to will it into existence. Thank you for the next documentary you're
for the
going to
next
do
thing.
as
Let's
well.
do it.
And you will get to see Hasan in the documentary when the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center is back on the rails this winter. So make a plan to come experience that. And the next time Hasan is in our community, you need to make a plan to come see him speak in person.
The annual meeting for the National Lewis and Clark
Thank
Trail
you.
Heritage will be here next summer.
Wonderful.
June 21 through 24, and we hope to have Hasan here.
We're working on it now, so I
Perfect.
hope so.
go.
I was like, is this the first you're hearing of it?
No, we had the
You're
conversation.
like, he's going to be here. It's good. Yeah.
So mark the calendar to plan around June 21 through 23 next
Wonderful.
year.
Yeah.
I am honored to have met you, and I am honored you got to share your story with us.
Thank
Montana's #1 podcast, but still fails in comparison to a lot of other national media outlets.
Yes.
Well, I
Thank
really
you for your
appreciate
time.
you all. Thanks for the time and for the energy. This, the people make the place, and you all definitely make this place. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And folks, when you want to feel this energy, you can come to Great Falls. And until we see your bright, smiling, happy, healthy, beautiful faces in our fine city, we do hope you're creating amazing memories with your friends and family wherever you might be. See you soon.
We're No Dam Experts is the recorded claims from Great Falls, Montana, covering what you need to know about this amazing damn town. Damn, that felt good.